Hello, Kelton. Good morning.
Is it? Is it a good morning?
No,
No.
no, no, actually, I was on my way home from dropping off my kids, which is not my job, thinking to myself, maybe the world would be better if there were no men in it. I'm Krisserin Canary.
And I'm Kelton Wright.
Follow our quest to publish our first novels
From first drafts to query letters
through inevitable rejection
and hopefully eventual success.
from California
To Colorado, this is Pen Pals. That kind of morning.
Yeah. I also woke up with I don't know, in the middle of the night with a pain in my shoulder.
Krisserin, I woke up with a pulled back. Are we in our 40s?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh no, am I at the age where I'm just gonna wake up in pain every day?
Oh, the athletes we once were.
I know. What the fuck? Yeah, so I had a grumpy morning and I'm just happy to be here with you now, you know?
I'm happy to be here with you.
Listeners, you can't see, but both Kelton and I are matching. Again, we're both wearing
Mhm.
cream, but we also both got our hair done.
Yeah,
Kelton
we
has this
did.
beautiful blonde glaze, and I have a fuck ass bob. So,
Yeah, I love it.
I hated it yesterday. It's a little bit better now that I slept on it, but I feel like I look like the evil mushrooms in Mario. Like it's very Goomba shaped.
No, I think it's cute.
Um,
I
it's
like the
gonna.
little flips.
That is because I think I slept on it. Well, I so obviously Kelton and I text each other in between episodes, and we both had a pretty productive week, but my productivity ended after I texted you, Kelton. So
Mhm. That adds
Kelton,
up.
Kelton texted me and she wrote, was it over 4,000 words?
In total, this week, I wrote 5,563 words. A
Oh yeah.
record-breaking week for me in the novel. And it was so satisfying. I wrote 3 chapters, maybe 3 scenes. I did get a little caught up in formatting and file systems, and I had to extricate myself from Scrivener. I
Oh.
Scrivener was kind of fucking up my momentum because I was like, is this a scene or is this a chapter? How do I save this? And I was just like, you know what? We're gonna go to the way that I feel most comfortable writing, which is just a Google Doc. And I'll just label each scene as it happened. So they're still on the side of the Google Doc, the summary outline. And I can worry about chapters later. Because I found it was just such a distracting element for me to be like, well, is this chapter 2 and chapter 3? How many chapters should it have? And I was like, bitch, it doesn't matter. What you are going for is 80,000 words. So I poured it all over to a Google Doc, and I feel much more comfortable there and had a much freer time just writing against the outline. So that was fun. And I'll have you know, I was thinking of you. There reached a point when I was writing where I was like, this outline is missing some things. And so I just wrote them. So the outline structure is still there, but I am switching materials. I am adding new rooms. I'm putting walls where we didn't know there were walls. And so that was great. It was super good. I also said I was going to, did I say I was going to read 2 books this week? Or was that last week?
You said you were just going to write 2 scenes.
No, I said I was going to read 2 books. I'm looking at last week's thing.
Did
Um,
I'm looking at this week's thing. I think that
yeah,
was
this week's is inaccurate. I
uh
didn't copy over the fact that I said I was going to read 2 books. I did say that. I brought home The Other Valley and The Ministry of Time. I was also reading Our Guests Today book, but I picked up Ministry of Time first because I was like, well, I'm going to breeze through this one. I was so in love with the first 30 pages. And now I am at halfway through the book and I am like, where are we going? What is happening? I like the characters, I like hanging out with them, but that does feel like all that is happening is that I'm hanging out with them. And
Mm.
every once in a while, you'll get one sentence that's like, crazy things gonna happen. And it's like, yeah, when?
When?
When? And like, I really like the writing. I really like the character development. And I know that this is sort of where I was at with the possession of Albadia as like halfway through the book. I was kind of like, what are we doing? And
Mm.
so I am going to stick with it and keep going because I think the writing is worth it. But it has slowed me down on finishing my 2-book plan because
Mhm.
I keep like begrudgingly picking up this book and being like, can we have the disaster happen already? Which is such good information for the book I am writing.
Well, that's
So,
good.
yeah, I am like, okay, how am I increasing the stakes throughout this book? Because my book is
Mhm.
kind of like a thriller adventure. And I'm like, we need something that is driving this forward.
Mhm. Yeah, I just was thinking of what Lauren said in our interview with her. Was it 2 weeks ago now? Where she was just like, if I don't feel compelled to pick the book back up, then I don't. Because that's how I feel too. It's really hard for me to force myself to read anything, which is why I really struggle. If the book's, especially if it's well written, but it's like not catching my attention, it has to be so well written to keep me
Yeah.
going forward. But
And Ministry of Time has a will they, won't they aspect to it. And that really you will drag me down into the depths of hell to finish a book for me to find out if they will or won't they.
but don't they
If they,
always? They always
no,
do.
there's part of me that thinks that in this they won't.
That would piss me off.
It is going to, but I'm stuck in that cycle nonetheless. So
Ugh.
I'm thinking of Kate Flanders, who's also reading this book right now, and I can't wait to see what she thinks about it. I should text her.
I was gonna say, did you text her to ask how it's
Not
going?
yet. Not yet. But yeah, it was a hugely productive week for me, and I really loved working on the novel. And it felt like, if I can do 5,500 words in 1 week, and that was in 3 sittings, then it's like, I don't know why I couldn't get you a spaghetti draft by the end of the summer.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote Parasocial, it just poured out of me. And I think it's because I had been thinking of it for so long. I had thought about this book for so long that when I finally sat down to write it, I just wrote it in a fugue. So I do think that even though you hadn't been actively working on the book, you had been thinking about it and it's kind of like happening in the background. So that's really exciting. And I got your
Yeah.
text. It inspired me.
Hmm.
Um I sat down and I wrote, I think, 4,400 words. That's the only writing I did this week, though. I wrote the 4,400 words. I finished 2 short stories. I wrote to the end of 2 short stories. And then
One of which you sent me,
I did send it to you.
which I have not
And
read yet. It's been
it's
a kind of
okay.
crazy week.
Neither has my mom, by the way. I was like,
Okay, we're
Mom,
aligned.
Mom, when are you
Come on, Mom.
when are you gonna read my story? But I spent another day revising and refining some of the finer points of that short story. And then I sent it to my beta readers, to my mom and to Kelton. And I haven't been able to do any writing since then. I was working until like 11:30 last night. So it's been kind of a crazy week for me this week. But I have been reading a lot. I haven't been getting enough sleep because I get to the end of my day and then I pick up the third book in the Seven Waters series by Juliette Marlier, and then I stay up until like 1:30 in the morning reading because it's so
Yeah,
good.
that's the
I'm almost done
best.
with the third book, so I finished the second book. I'm almost done with the third book. I'm just really enjoying it, and I hope I can just luxuriate in the world for a little bit longer, at least for 3 more
Yeah,
books, a couple more weeks. But yeah,
that's so fun.
yeah, I love that.
Uh, I don't know. I can like hear how tired we are, though. We're just like, well, we did our writing,
We did all
and
right.
then we were exhausted.
Family got in the way. Yeah. So, listeners, we have quite the treat this week. We are interviewing my mentor, my former Penn EV mentor and friend, Ramona Ausubel. She is the author of celebrated works of fiction, including the national bestseller The Last Animal, which received the National Book Foundation's Science and Literature Prize and was a Barnes& and Noble monthly pick. She's the winner of the PEN Center USA Literary Award for Fiction and the VCU Cabell First Novelist Award, and her work has appeared in The New Yorker, Tin House, Electric Literature, and the Paris Review, among many others. Ramona is a beloved teacher of writing, having taught at Tin House, Breadloaf, and several MFA programs, including the Institute of American Indian Arts, which I will be a candidate starting in the fall, and Bennington. She's currently a professor at Colorado State University. Her new book, Unstuck, 101 Doorways Leading from the Blank Page to the Last Page, is a creative companion for writers at every stage of the process, and it comes out as of this recording, or when you're listening to this, tomorrow, April 14th. You can either pre-order it today, or you can place an order on bookshop.org tomorrow, or go to your bookstore of choice. I'm so excited. Here's Ramona. Hello, welcome, Mona, to Pen Pals. We're so excited to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I think it's been like 13 years since we've seen each
Whoa,
other.
that's so crazy. That makes sense because my kid was like a baby and now I'm in this like blank boring room because I'm at Colorado State University where my now 14-year-old is competing in the state science fair in like the couple rooms away.
That is so cool. Yeah, when I was reading your book and you talked about, because I just went through this whole process. My daughter Sabine started middle school this year. So we went through this whole, I was reading about you going through the same process that I just went through. And then you mentioned that you had a teen in high school. And I was like, how? When did that happen?
It really is. Yeah, it's like this slide that you just like shoot down and then you're like, "Oh my God, we're at the bottom of the slide. It's totally different." It's so crazy. Yeah.
It's so different. And, when you were my mentor, you had just published your first book, I believe. No one is here except all of us. And then,
Mhm.
but since then you've published two novels and two additional short story collections. So much work has been done. And yet here you've written another book about helping writers get unstuck, which doesn't seem like a problem you necessarily have. So I am so interested. I mean, the book is incredible. Kelton and I were waxing about it in the intro about how generous it is and how indicative of what a like giving and warm person that you are, that you would write this book and dedicate it to your students. I'm so curious how the idea came to be to write this book.
No, well, you're like it's to you. It's for all of us. The thing is, over all those books, I have gotten stuck 4 million times. There's like that feeling of you are riding a little wave of energy and then it like breaks and you're back to nothing again over and over and over. So I've developed all these ways to start again. And I feel like in a way, to be a writer is to stop and start again and stop and start again and to keep choosing to start again, even when you feel like you've run out of the information that you have, you've run out of the confidence, whatever it is. It's so easy and it just happens. It's a natural part of it. So I started to think about that as like maybe the mission is not get to the end of the book, but get into a like comfort with that rhythm of stopping and starting and stopping and starting. And I started keeping track of these things. That book actually began with a talk on revision in a low residency MFA program. And it was like, because nobody, I feel like the writers were like, what are you talking about when you talk about revision? What does that even mean? Like, I know it's not spell check. What is it though? So I was just like, well, here's a bunch of things that I do. Here's a bunch of approaches that I have to like sort of like take the thing apart and put it back together again over and over. And then that I kept thinking of more things. And then that talk grew. And then it like pretty soon I had like 30 or 40 different doorways as I thought of them and felt like, I wonder if this is like going in the direction of a book. And lo, it did.
I really loved it. And I felt as I was going through it, the way that I naturally was drawn was there were certain things that really spoke to me in the table of contents that I was like, oh, I want to read that one. And I pick it up and I read it and did the same. When this podcast it comes out, your book will be available the next day, which is really exciting. Is there a way that you recommend readers use your book? Should they read it from start to finish? Should they pick it up and find themselves in whatever speaks to them?
No, I love that. I think that's the way. It works if you're starting something and you end up starting at the beginning and sort of moving through it, that could conceivably work too. But I really wanted it to be this like huge, the biggest offering that I could make with as many ways back in as I use and could think of at every stage. So whether you're starting a new project, working your way through that long middle, trying to get some perspective, especially on a longer piece, and then sort of seeing your way through the ending and coming out the other side. I wanted there to be ways in all over. So wherever you are in that kind of like crazy giant mansion of writing something, there's, I hope, a strategy and a doorway and a key that will get you moving again. And there's no wrong way to do it. It's like you can be in this maze, however you're in this maze.
I feel like that is one of the ways that you help people get unstuck. It's because like you could be like the flipper where you're like, I'm just gonna breeze open, see which one lands. But I also like that the other doorway in is the 4 parts of the book, where it's like, if you do know where you are losing momentum, these specific exercises will actually like kind of help push the train down the track a little bit. Because I know that, like, with other creativity books, I can just be like, I don't know, I don't even know where to start with the book. So that you
Mhm.
have kind of 2 prescriptions of how to go in, I found very helpful.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I think that was one of the best parts of writing the book is that I got to organize all of my thoughts and ideas into these 4 sections. It felt really helpful to me, and I'm starting a new project now, and I'm using the same things again. Like, this is my 7th book, and I'm still being like, "Just begin anywhere. It's okay. You don't know what it is yet. Just making the primordial slush draft. It's like creating energy. Don't be attached. There's no beginning and no end yet." Yeah, it's like it keeps being hard, but it also means it keeps being a new adventure every time and new ways to pay attention and find something just like one way forward at a time.
I feel like as I was reading through how you were describing the book, and even I wouldn't call them prompts necessarily, but some of the doorways that you were listing, you have this very, and envious in me because I'm not like this feeling of discovery and a lack of preciousness almost with with your words as you're working through a project. I feel like because of where I am as a writer, time is precious. We have all of these other things that we're working on. And so any momentum that I have that I build towards a project, I'm very protective of it, but it's not what I want to be. What I want to be is someone who can spend the time to write my character from a different POV like you recommend, or do an exploration of writing their obituary, of all of these little things that would make me understand my characters more. So there is this feeling of like the Alexander Hamilton, why does he write like he's running out of time? But how can you recommend to other writers? A lot of our listeners are in the same stage as we are. They're starting out, they're writing their first projects, they're trying to get an agent, they're trying to get published, to be a little bit more generous with their time and their creativity and get into that mode of discovery. And I'm asking for myself.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. I have those periods too where I'm like, I can't do it. No sidetracks. Just like gotta keep going forward because I'm really on a mission right now. And that is also okay. I guess one of the biggest things that I tell my students is that your job as you're writing is to also learn your own mind and figure out what works for you. And it's not to say, oh, that person over there seems to get up at 4 a.m. and write for 3 hours before her kids get up. Probably I should be doing that too. I must be doing it wrong. No, if what you're doing is working, if it's like I write on my lunch break or I'm like dictating something in the car, like whatever it is that is working, keep doing the thing that's working. So don't feel like there's never a different, more right way. And I also do feel like there's that sense of inefficiency of doing a little, like taking a break and doing some discovery feels like you're going off the track and you're going to be spending time doing something that's not directly contributing to the completion of a project. And I feel like a lot of those little sidetracks end up being you scooting, like putting the gas on. So you're like, yes, you are driving 35 miles an hour down the straight road. But if you go get some lunch, you're going to be able to drive much faster the next time, the next stretch, or whatever the metaphor is. So to say, like, the playfulness and the discovery is also really more productive than it might look from the outside.
Makes it more fun, probably. If I'm thinking about it as like a road trip analogy, I'm like, if I'm driving straight across the country on the interstate, God, that's a long haul. But if I'm like, I'm going to stop at that big ball of yarn, I'm going to find an old diner, I'm going to go off that path I just saw and see what's down there. It's like, it makes the whole thing more fun.
Yeah, completely. Exactly. It's way more fun. And you discover stuff that actually becomes integral to the story that you couldn't have known that you didn't know. But once you see it, you're like, oh, the major scene is at the big ball of yarn. We have like that's what it is like a a mission of like nostalgia and curiosity and kitsch and whatever all of that stuff is. It weaves its way into the cloth of the piece.
I love that. And I was also thinking about Kelton when I was reading that section because you would talk about, dictating the book in the car or with the baby on your chest. And I was like, that's Kelton. That's how
Yeah,
Kelton's getting her writing done.
it
Uh,
is.
um,
I so much respect.
it's so hard. Kelton's in the early stages of motherhood. She's got a almost 2-year-old. So she's like in it.
You are in the thick of
Yeah.
it. This is the hardest
But
part. Yep.
hearing your momentum through their childhood into their like preteen and teen years is very motivating for me because I'm like, you wrote all those books while you had them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things I think about a lot I feel like when I started writing, I had this idea that a real writer would be like in her, you know, in her stone house out on the moors and looking out at the swamps with nothing but time on her hands. And that's what I should be doing. And instead, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. It's pickup time. I gotta like finish this paragraph really fast. And then I have to remember to make the doctor's appointment and do all the stuff of life. And yes, the stuff of life is slows you down. There's like it's an interruption in a way. But it also is the reason we have anything at all to say because it feels like something and we're in this like incredibly vast complicated experience. So that's what we're writing at the same time. I mean so much of being a mom has has is what's in my work. It's what I'm thinking about and what ends up being the like real substance of the stories. And it sometimes is an interruption, and those things can both be true at the same time.
Yeah, I do like thinking when I get really frustrated, I'm like, how would you describe this feeling in writing? How could we capture this feeling for your character?
Totally. I know, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Because that's what's real is like there's no just like all I'm feeling is grief. All I'm feeling is profound joy. All I'm feeling is the like pleasure of being with this beautiful baby. It's you're probably feeling many things at the same time because you're a
Mhm.
real complicated person in a complicated life.
Yeah, hang on, honey. Mommy's thinking about words.
Exactly. I'll get you your peanut butter sandwich in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. You can show me the toy, the Lego that you built in 5 minutes. Um, in your book, you talk about the primordial ooze, which I love because I love languishing in the primordial ooze of my writing. We talk a lot about pantsing versus outlining. I'm a pantser. Kelton is an outliner. And with Unstuck and the way that you've thought through story, I mean, do you feel like, first of all, are you a pantser or are you an outliner? And then secondly, do you feel like there are unique challenges that we get stuck in those different modes?
Mhm. I think I'm kind of a combination of the two because I mean, I would say pantser first, but then I have a really strong need to make patterns and to look for patterns and to organize. So my sort of I probably begin with the endless possibility of nothingness, like or of everythingness that I could go anywhere at any time and I want to be able to strike out into field of my curiosity, which runs like 360 degrees around me and all the way, up and down, and I can go anywhere and there's no wrong way to discover what I'm trying to say and what matters to me here. And then somewhere like after a certain period, usually it sort of like comes up in the like 75 or 80 page zone of a novel, I need to step back and start to really figure out what this is going to look like and have a little bit more of a map. And that then having a little map then allows me more of the playful discovery stuff because I feel relaxed because I know there's something holding this space up. It's not just total and like all possibilities are I could do anything at any time. They could be on Mars, they could be in 1850. Like you do have to start to limit and put some parameters around things. So yeah, I think it's a kind of I feel like I go back and forth and I want both of those. I want to engage both of those parts of myself so that I can bring all of the ways of thinking to the project and not limit myself to one or the other. But I definitely can't write an outline at the very beginning because I don't really know what I'm trying to do yet. And I don't know what the secret surprises are going to be. So to outline would be to sort of like limit myself to the small amount that I know at this moment. And it would and to have that be the total contents of the story, which would eliminate so many things that I don't know yet.
That's interesting. Like Krisserin and I talk about me being an outliner a lot this season, but what really happened was I did write 30,000 words of this novel before I decided to write an outline. And that outline scrapped about 15,000 of those words. And so I spent a lot of time like in the mush trying to be like, we smush this into something that stands up? And then I was like, okay, I have a lot of all my paper mache and I need some like wires to pad it on. And so like this being my first novel project, I don't really know if I'm an outliner or a pantser religiously. But I
Mhm.
have found that the outlining did help me have some like scaffolding to cling to.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I think that that feeling of like you've got 30,000 words, but wait, what hold on. What do we have? What actually is what's sticking with me? What's sticking together in the like sculpture of the thing? And realizing that a bunch of those words are not actually part of it is actually very efficient and normal. It's not, there's no way to do it without that happening. It's it's like I feel like we want to sort of like open our arms wider and wrap our arms around the whole process rather than just think about the like page 1 through 300 of the novel that you eventually hope to have. It's not going to be linear and you can't map the way you're going to get there now for sure because there's just no way you will not be successful.
And I think it robs you of joy if you're just trying to get to the end of finishing the project, where there's something about being in the ooze and finding that's the fun part. Like writing the first draft for me is the most fun part of writing the book because that's where you get to just do whatever the hell you want and make choices and like change your mind however you want. That's the fun part of writing that I feel like when you are so focused on productivity and word count, that's when it gets not as much fun. Like the revision
Hmm.
process is scratches a different part of my brain, I guess. I'm curious. Well, first of all, I would love to know what your map looks like because Kelton and I, like, we have different maps. Like, my map is a spider web and hers is an Excel document. What does your map
Oh
look
wow, yeah.
like?
My map is more like a spider web. It's much more like a spider web and it keeps I sort of sometimes it like wants to do that sort of like narrative arc thing and I want to be able to have a sense of where things are in the forward movement. But then I also like to map all the other parts too, like sort of the landscape and where the tension in the landscape is like the physical spaces and places in the book. And then I want to be able to map the different characters and where their points of tension are and where in the story they are at their sort of like lowest and highest and the hardest parts for them. And so it's almost like a spider web, but it's like five different spider webs on top of each other. So then I kind of like overlay them and I can see that there are sort of parts where nothing is really going on actually. Like there's Austin somewhere in the middle where I've run out of ideas and I just like try stuff. a bunch of those things don't end up working. Like we're going to go, all right, we're going to go to the giant Las Vegas all you can eat buffet in this section. Everybody come, like, get in the car, characters. We're going to try and see what happens in that situation. And maybe it ends up becoming great and really part of the book, and maybe it sort of falls apart, or it's like it just becomes a non-thing. And I might see that in the map, that it's sort of like everything dips in that part and it's not really contributing anything, which means that I have the choice to either cut it or totally change it to something else, or have something happen. Like maybe the kids need to get in a sword fight with the Dungeness crab legs, and the dad needs to scream at them and like get kicked out by security. Like something has
Why
to
didn't
happen so that it
my brain went
becomes
to
a
crab
real thing.
legs immediately when you said Vegas all you can eat buffet.
It's right. It's like
I was like,
high
is
value
someone going to
thing.
go into anaphylactic shock because they have a
There,
shellfish allergy? Like, what's happening at the all you can eat buffet? What a great place
Exactly.
for a
Yeah.
scene, though.
Yeah.
Right? A good place for something has got to happen.
Something's got to happen. I love that. Well, the question I wanted to ask was, we write the book, we've revised it and we've edited it, and we get stuck in the query trenches. And we're both kind of like, Kelt and I are in this place, in the waiting place. I don't know if you've read "Oh, the Places You Will Go" by Dr. Seuss. We're stuck in the waiting place, the worst place. And sometimes, and I've had this happen with other projects, it's like you work so hard on a project and you feel like this is it. This is as far as I can humanly take it by myself. And then you send it out into the world and the world comes back and says, this needs more work. How do you get unstuck from that? For me, I'm very much like, my brain has said no more.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that you can recommend to like reignite the motivation to go back to projects that in your heart are done, but probably need more work?
Yeah, that stage is so hard because you've lived with it and in it for so long. And it almost is like it's joined with you. Like you're sort of like just like this one unit together. And it's hard to both separate it out and then reimagine it to be like, it's not actually merged with me. I can externalize it again and take a new approach and be willing to take it apart and put it back together in a bigger way. But I mean, I really do think that taking a break can be necessary and useful to say, my heart's not in it right now. I need to work on something else for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is, and just like fall in love with another world. And then when I've sort of like gotten to a stuck place with that, then maybe this other one that's so familiar will feel like kind of like an old buddy that you can be like, oh, but you kind of actually understand. Let's try it and see what we can figure out. I also think that there's a feeling of not wanting to break something that you feel like you kind of have. It's like it's a machine that's working and it feels scary to take it apart at that stage. But you're not actually taking apart the thing you have. You're always starting a new document. Nothing is going to be lost that you had before. And the job is, sometimes I tell myself, really, let's just pretend to try a new tech. Let's just imagine for 3 weeks, we're just going to like play around in there and see what happens. But it's not real. It's not when we're like, there's no commitment here. We're just going to pretend and see what happens. And it actually is so freeing. That timeline also is super helpful for me. Saying to myself, I'm going to try this thing for 1 week or 2 weeks or a month. I'm going to rewrite the point of view. I'm just going to do that for this period, and it's not going to last forever. I'm not diving into the endlessness of this. I'm just going to like run this experiment and see how it feels at the end. And it either works or it doesn't work. I used to have a teacher who would say, you need to look at this narrative tension. It's going to cost you 2 weeks. It's going to cost you 5 hours, whatever it was. And it was like,
I love
there's
that.
something I know, it was great. It was kind of amazing of like, oh, you're right. It's finite. It's going to cost me 5 hours. I spend 5 hours doing stupid things all the time. So I'm going to spend 5 hours trying this. And then you have something that you're like, you've tried. And a lot of times it feels like it comes back to life once you've like allowed yourself to dive back in. And it becomes fun again and less scary again. And usually for me, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be better. This can totally be better.
You scratched such a deep part of my brain by saying pretend to write something new. Not even like you're leaving the old document alone. You are literally pretending to write something new, which makes me like coming back to your primordial slush of writing, like the pretend element, I think makes me feel very safe in writing, where
Mhm.
I'm like, there's no stakes, there's no querying, there's no agents, there's no selling it. It's just like I'm playing pretend. And when I play pretend, I don't want anyone else involved, you know? I'm like, get
Exactly.
out of here. You're going to get the characters wrong. So that really, wow, you just like, you've entered my personal canon of writing advice.
Yeah. That one has worked for me over and over. It's kind of in the same camp as the 20-minute doorway. That's 20, stay in the chair 20 minutes longer than you plan to. So right when you get to the point where you're like, I can't do it anymore. I gotta stop. I'm gonna go eat a sandwich. I gotta take a shower. I gotta scrub the toilet. Anything but this. Set a timer and stay 20 minutes because it's sort of like non-time time. It feels like that pretend time where you're safe. You're not officially on the clock. You can just like do stuff and write sentences. Sometimes I'll write 1,000 words in that last 20 minutes where it took me like the whole 2 hours before to write 300 words and I was suffering over it. Now it's just like I'm in the like imaginary space. It's like being on a flight where you're like, if I get stuff, I can get so much done in this 5 hours and it's like a bonus because it doesn't count. It's not, nobody's keeping track of it.
Yeah, you're
That
in the in
is,
between.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can like, it's like this little secret bubble of like, who knows what happens in that 20 minutes when I'm pretending that I'm writing something. Yeah,
Love that. It's
so fun.
making magic.
That's it. Yeah.
You spoke about your teachers. I'm curious. I'm sure a lot of these doorways you found yourself. Which doorways did your teacher show you? And the ones that,
Mm,
which are the ones that stuck with you the most?
that's a good question. I think a lot of, I'm trying to see if there's, well, the defamiliarizing the familiar that was sparked by another writer, Matthew Gavin Frank, who wasn't a teacher of mine, but came to give my students a lecture. And I thought about his approach to research a lot. A lot of them come from other people. The Writing the Islands is Matt Bell, comes from his book, Refused to Be Done, which is so good, so helpful, such a good book on writing a novel. But the ones that come from my teachers, I think, are the number 28, which is against the magnum opus. That I think is really derived from my teacher, Michelle Latiole, who was my MFA, just like fairy godmother. And I love her so much. And she was so profoundly, deeply instructive to my way of writing that to sort of that like non-preciousness of like turn down the volume on the eventual mattering of this thing. It's not about what it does in the marketplace. It's not about being praised by somebody. Just do the work and do the work that you want to do right now in the most honest way that you can. That it doesn't have to be the project. Write a short story because you feel like writing a short story and know that it will also lead to another thing that you can't yet imagine. Maybe like a novel idea stems out of it, or maybe it's just that place that you can rest for a little while in between drafts of a novel when you really need a break. But stopping writing feels like it will be either like lonely and you'll miss it, or just unproductive because you'll sort of get out of that writer brain. She also, what I turned in a story, my second story of my MFA program. My first story in the workshop was like very bad, a very like really rough. I came out like I was crying. It was intense. It was really a hard workshop. And so the next one, I was like, I don't want to do that again. I have to write a new thing and it has to be really good. So I wrote this story but it's about this uh, girl in high school who gets pregnant and believes she's going to give birth to any number of strange animals. And right before I turned it in, I was like, "Oh my god, what if somebody's already written this story? I was a poet before. I like haven't read that much short fiction. I'm totally copying somebody without realizing it." So I wrote Michelle an email and was like, "Oh my god, am I like what should I do?" I felt like she was going to be like, yeah, somebody has kind of written a story about a young man and a slave going down the Mississippi on a raft. Like you probably should avoid that." But she said, that is sweet and neurotic. And I recognize that as a pattern writers have. And it is the treatment, not the subject. So the way you personally come at it from your experience and in your voice is the thing. So don't just put aside all of that like external, like, well, that it should be this. And then the Here We Have James by Percival Everett, which is exactly a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but from a different perspective. And it is a profound and incredible book that exists, that matters because it's in conversation. So I guess just to like coming at what she taught me was so much sort of like the way to be in my chair as a writer, and the way to take myself both very seriously and very unseriously at the same time. And between those two things, kind of going back and forth between those two things, I can always keep moving forward.
It's funny, the writing that we culturally are like, well, of course there should be another adaptation of that. Like we should have at least 100 more Pride and Prejudices. We should do every single Shakespeare at least once a year by someone. And then it's like sometimes we get so caught up with like, oh, well, is this like the exact same story someone published in 2023? And you're like,
Yes,
it's never going to be the exact same story.
I
So
know.
it's
Isn't
interesting,
that
like
weird?
where we allow ourselves to play with narrative, and where we're like, well, this one needs to be original because it's mine.
Yeah, totally. I know. It is so yeah, there's like if you're gonna retell Shakespeare, you're like a serious and intelligent person. But if you're gonna have like brush up against a novel that was published last year, you're gonna be like, oh whoa, you're nothing original and we saw you. And
Uh-huh.
truthfully, nobody's gonna say that or care is the truth. But they're like those are the voices.
It's funny because, when you go through the query process, you have to provide comps. You have to say, my
Right.
book is similar to these books, which is a way to signal, obviously, to the publisher and to the agent that this is a marketable idea. But in the same
Hmm.
vein, sometimes when I tell people ask me, like, what's your book about, which is the worst question ever, and you have to sit there and describe it, they'd be like, oh, yeah, it's kind of like this. And then I'm like, no, it's not. Don't say that. I hate that.
I know, I hate that too. Or they'll be like, is it like that movie? I'm like, no, it's not like that movie. Yeah, I know. Like it's unique in the world. Nobody's ever done this before, okay?
That's right. I'm the first and the only. Oh
Yeah.
man. So we asked about your teachers. I'm curious if there are doorways that you as a teacher have discovered with your students that teaching
Oh,
has
so
shown
many.
you.
So many of them. I feel like all of them are I've named them and like crystallized them as a teacher. I probably wouldn't have I'm sure I would have been using them in some way because I really do use them and they really do come out of my work, but I might not have even identified this as like this is the pattern and this is how I'm using it. And because I teach, I'm noticing it in real time as I'm doing it. I'm like, oh, this is how I'm getting through this right now. I see that. And then I say it to somebody, and then it becomes like a thing. So, yeah, I feel like I've become such a better writer by being a teacher because I'm so much more attentive to process and to other people's processes. Being involved in other writers' process is so useful. Like it's feels like a privilege, but it also is just very technically useful because everybody does things differently. So I'm learning from them all the time. But I noticed like there's one doorway that when I was revising The Last Animal, which is my latest novel, that I did this the thing of doing one chapter for 2 weeks. I would like set myself a date with that chapter. And the first week I just wrote into it. So anything that I now understood needed to be there or wanted to be there or I wanted to play around with, that first week I was just like writing into it, no editing, no changing things. And then the second week I would read it again on Monday and revise it, make it sort of bring it up to the level of a second draft. And it was so much fun because I felt like I knew exactly what I was there to do. I didn't have to think about all the other chapters at that point. I was just like in this thing with this one chapter and I had like the 2 weeks. So I there was the scaffolding around me, but I had room to do the playing and the kind of like, prefrontal cortex thinking pattern making part too. And I was working with a class of novelists that they just happened to be that all the MFAs here were novelists that year. So we were talking about that all the time. And it was so nice to be like, ooh, I'm trying this thing. What are you guys trying right now? And to share that and name it that way.
That's so interesting. So do you work on your projects like on a chapter by chapter basis? So you'll write the first draft of the chapter and then revise it immediately into kind of no? Okay.
No, it's a first full draft or half draft, whatever, however much, like however dense the weave of the draft is depends. But I like all the way through beginning to end without looking up. That's the first part. Maybe I do that sort of rough outline in the like third of the way through phase so I can see my way forward. But that's as much planning as I would ever do. And then in the next draft, I come back and it's more like that sort of controlled system. But I also love to revise by going thread by thread. So taking whatever stretch of time, maybe it's also a week or 2 weeks, and paying attention only to one character. So I'm just watching what is every scene. How is this character? Are there moments where she's just like saying the same thing she said before and is like hitting the same note? Is her like sort of like lines of tension interesting enough? Is there enough going on? Does she have enough to do? And letting everything else go, but paying attention only to that, or paying attention only to setting, or only to like the texture of the sentences. Are the sentences themselves like doing enough? Is there enough in the imagery? So that I guess part of it is that I am not good at paying attention to a lot of things at once. I think I have like a like ADHD brain, and it's just like too much. I can get distracted and doubt myself if I have too much I'm thinking about. So the more I can be like, okay, one chapter, 2 weeks, or pay attention just to Vera, just follow Vera, see what's going on with her, and really work on her. The stronger the work is, and the more kind of in it I am, because the less self doubt is getting in the way.
Like structured play.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
like it.
exactly. Totally. Yeah. I think that probably could sum up like everything I do. Structured play is like that's what it is. So everything in Unstuck is some version of that.
Following one character at a time, I think, is such a great idea too. To be like, what are they doing here? What are they feeling? Even if they're peripheral, it's like if they're peripheral, they're in there for a reason still. And so to make
Yeah.
sure that there's an arc that they're following and attention that they're drawn to, that made me I was just like lost in my head thinking about one of my characters. I was like, what is he doing?
I had a character in The Last Animal that's about a woman and her two daughters who end up in this like genetics project to bring back the woolly mammoth. And for a lot of drafts, it was a mom and dad and the two kids. And the dad was just like a lump. Like he was just like a thing attached to the mom's shoulder, and was like a thing that was like traveling along with them, but really had nothing, no purpose. And there was a moment way far in. It was like after I'd sold the book, it was in the last like probably 2 drafts. I was like, oh, he needs to be dead. The dad needs to be dead. His whole purpose is to be in absence. He was like a non thing, but he needed to be even more of a non thing in a way that like electrified everything, and like brought this like huge sense of gravity and grief to the whole situation, which is really a book about like grief in many different ways. And that completely changed the story. And it like all of a sudden it just like zunk, it's like a novel now, and it came into focus. And I kind of knew that like something, I was like, what is it? I can't solve it. I kept like giving him more stuff to do. And he was still just like, boop-a-doop-a-doo. I'm like, okay, I have to kill you. Sorry.
This is the Disney writer's room. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, one of these has to be dead.
Which parent? Both parents? One parent's got to be one.
I find writing parents is particularly hard because you've got to have their relationship with each other, the characters' individual relationships with them, and then the characters' collective relationship with them, and give them full. Like, yeah, I killed a parent in one of my books, but like it was a big deal that they died.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard thing
Yeah.
to write. Yeah.
One of the
Yeah,
parents
especially-
in my novel dies in the first sentence.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really powerful narrative move. And it's hard as a parent to do that. You're like, this is the only thing that I like need to not happen. It's one of like the top things that needs to not ever happen in the world. I'm going to make it happen in the story. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah.
That a child dying and a dog dying. The dog dying kills, like that's the hardest thing for me.
Yeah. There's that meme of, the guy whose sunglasses is holding up the protest sign. And there's one that says, I'm not watching the movie if the dog dies. And I feel that. I'm like, just don't even.
Yeah. Haven't we seen enough Keanu Reeves movies? Like we know what happens when the dog is killed. It's not good.
No.
One of my favorite doorways that you have in the book is do something for someone. The do something for someone doorway. I mean, your book is just overwhelmingly generous. And I think that this is one that Kelton and I talk about a lot, of being a good literary citizen. And I just loved this idea of write 5 generous reviews of books that you loved or offer to read a draft for somebody. What are your favorite ways of being a good literary citizen? What are the things that you like to do when you need to pull yourself up out of your writing? And I mean, besides being an incredibly generous teacher and having all of these students that you help all the time.
I love that question. I love the offering to read something. That one feels so good to kind of come up out of the blue and be like, I'm available for something if you're ready. Everyone, even if it's just like, can you just read the scene? I don't need to, whatever's actually like genuinely useful. Don't give me stuff you're not ready to have somebody see. And I also like the celebrate some good thing that somebody else is doing. So go to somebody's reading or write nice things on the internet about their book, or just like send them a present, a little something for their, whether it's like publication or you finished a draft, or I'm just proud of you for staying in it. Something like that feels direct and real. Those are my favorites. I'm not good at social media, so I'm not a good literary citizen in that way. And I always feel a sense of like guilt and that I'm missing, that I should be posting about everybody else's books all the time. And I mean to, and I read them, but I'm not good at it. And that, yeah. So, but I'm
It's
trying to like
hard.
focus on, it's so hard. And I always worry that I'm going to miss one and that person's going to it just feels fraught. And that slows me down. So then instead of that becoming a way to feel better and feel more connected, it makes me feel more disconnected because I feel like I'm messing it up and I'm going to like accidentally hurt somebody by trying to be nice. So instead of worrying about that and being like, I'm going to start doing that more, I just do the other things that I genuinely like to do and that really do feel good and that feel like is a thing that I truly have to offer, and focus on that for now. And there might come a point where I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to try to do the posting books on my Instagram page or whatever. And if that happens, great. I'll welcome that version of me if she shows up. But right now it just doesn't feel true. And it feels like it will make the whole thing feel like more prickly, which I don't want.
Well, I think the most generous thing you did for me in this book is talk about writer math. Writer math is something I talk to Krisserin about all the time. It's like how I motivate myself through anything, and seeing it in your book made me feel so validated. Just the element of being like, okay, if I write this many words and this many weeks, it will amount to this many pages on these days. And by then, I will feel amazing. And
Yes,
I wanted to
it
see
really
like
works.
and what kind of writer math are you using right now?
Right now, I'm just trying to start a totally brand new thing, and I've got a lot of stuff for Unstuck going on. So I'm trying to be aware that I don't have as much time as I might at another moment. So instead of being too ambitious, I'm going for like a 500 words a day practice, weekdays only, and sometimes it's maybe not even going to hit that. I want to open the document every day and I want to aim for 500 words, but if I just add a sentence, that's okay right now. My goal for this is to have something that's kind of starting to come alive by the time school starts in August, so that I've got something to work on next academic year. I don't need to finish anything right now. I've got a novel out with my agent right now, so it'll be like I don't need to be in the like ultra productive place, but I still really want to be in a relationship with the work. So that's my writer math right now. It's mostly like visit it at its house every day. And 500 words might happen, but they also may not.
I'm definitely more of the school of spending the time, and Kelton's more of the school of let's have a word count goal.
It changes for
Kelton and I
me.
are
It
we're
goes
very
back and
yin and
forth.
yang.
That's good. That's why I'm with your friends and podcast buddies.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we call each other accountability buddies. We keep each other
No,
accountable. So we
that's
have our
so good.
writing. That's one of your doorways, is getting a writing buddy.
Yeah.
We are each other's
Yeah.
writing buddies, and it really does help. It helps a lot. What's your favorite doorway in your book?
I think the one I use the very most is the what ifs. So this is when I get stuck or when I don't know anything about the beginning of something, to set the document aside, open a new document. So for every story or novel that I'm working on, I have the thing itself, or maybe it's broken into chapters. And then I have a cuts document where I can put anything that I think is not going to stay, but can feel like it's just going to like a nice hotel instead of getting killed. And then I have a what if document. And the what if document ranges far and wide. So if I'm stuck, I will stop, put the thing away, open that, and write 25 what ifs. And these can be possibilities that go in absolutely any direction. So they could be like things to do with things. So what if we have we're in the buffet and the crab legs are being used as swords. That is that feels like an opening that has to do with character, but also has to do with the objects. It could be things with settings. What if we move this to 1998 at the mall in Santa Fe where I grew up? What if this is super condensed? So rather than taking place over the whole summer, what if we smush it down to 3 days? What if the mom has some kind of illness? What if the dad just won the lottery? What if like it could be every different possible direction. I'm not choosing anything, so it's totally nonlinear. And at the end of the 25, I have never not come up with something that feels like it's the next yes. And I'm just looking for the next yes. I'm not solving the whole story right now. I'm just finding the next thing that feels like, ooh, there's definitely something in that crab leg scene. Okay, I'm gonna start there, and that's all I need to know right now. I'm just gonna like go to where that heat is. And the reason that I like it, aside from just being really fun because it's a list, and so it's like so there's no pressure on it. It's kind of like that pretend again. It's like this. I'm taking it away from the writing itself and moving it into the land of all possibilities. But also, I write a lot of them. The 25 is helpful because if I do only 5, it's usually kind of the more obvious top of the head ideas. And if I go past those, that's where the good stuff often is, where I'm like digging a little deeper and coming up with things that feel like more unexpected or weirder. Yeah, truly, it has never failed me. It's so helpful. And I never delete them. So that document can get very long. For The Last Animal, I think the novel is like 250 pages and the what if document is like 50 pages. It's a lot of time spent in that mode. And I sometimes go back and reread things that I put there before and find something that day 3 me thought of that I didn't know I was going to use, but then I do later. There's also it's nice to look, it's like an archaeological document because you could look back and
Mhm.
be like, wow, at one point I thought this story was going to involve like the underground tunnels of the zoo. I had totally forgotten that was one of the things that I might do, and I am super not doing that.
I'm going to add that to my list of goals for the week. I'm going to do my what if document. It really, there is so much focused on discovery. Discovery is a huge part of these doorways and figuring out what's next. And as I was reading the beginning of the book, I felt like, oh, this is very much in line with improv rules. The yes
Mhm.
and then I saw that you had a chapter specifically about learning lessons from improv. So I I absolutely love that idea. I figure we probably should have opened this episode with this question, but I would love for you to share with our listeners kind of your path to becoming a writer.
Mm.
I know you attended the UCI MFA program, which is an incredible program, but when did you know when you were young that you wanted to become a writer? And how did that first book come to you? And how did you find your agent?
Yeah, of course. I have a lot of writers in my family, so I sort of knew that that's one of the things that a person could be. We don't have any like practical jobs. Now one of my cousins is a doctor, but there's like some professors, but everybody was an artist basically. So I I think I thought that's what grown-ups did, which is
That's
not.
amazing.
Yeah, I know.
What a
Like I'm
dream.
really
That's
glad
so
that I
wild.
didn't think like I should be an accountant. It was great. But so I
That's
wrote,
literally what Kelton was like. I'm going to make money. I'm going to be in finance when I grow up. That was her whole.
which
Thank
is
God we
also,
got out of that.
yeah, but it can't, I mean, it turns out we all have to also have jobs. Even the writers who are successful as writers also have jobs. So that I didn't realize. I didn't understand how that whole picture was going to come together. And it could have been a lot of different things. But for the writing part, I was also a really shy kid. And I found that writing was a way to communicate with the world, honestly, and that where I actually got like seen and heard, which I didn't know how to do out loud with my regular voice. And that was really helpful. So it was between those things. And I wrote poetry seriously, I was a teenager, but seriously as a teenager in the high school and in college. And then I got this idea for a novel, which I ended up being my first 2 books, but I thought it was 1 book. which was my two grandmothers' sort of views of the 20th century. On my dad's side, they're poor Jews, like living in tiny villages and surviving various pogroms and wars by eating tree bark, and really dark. And on the other side, my mom's side is like sort of fallen American aristocracy of like once extremely connected, rich, like wings of museums named after relatives, all of that stuff. The money they were that's where a lot of the artists were. So the money went down and down until it got to my generation. We're like, we don't need more money, but we still want to make art. So I thought that would be that would be one novel. And I started it while I was working as a personal assistant. It was a terrible job. And I took Fridays off so that I could write. I was working on this novel. I was like, plugging away. But I came to the realization that I really didn't know what I was doing. I'd only written poetry before. So I was like, used to this much text. And now it's like this endless feeling idea. And the story was really, really too big. So I decided I need to apply to graduate school, and I did. And I had just enough pages basically for the application that were okay. And fortunately I got in. So, but when I got there, I, all of these people around the table were really, really good. They were really good. Like my first stories, I was like, oh my God. I'm in like way over my head. I'm not at this level at all. And I need to I have so much to learn. So I put the novel away and decided I would just write short fiction for the beginning and teach myself to write prose and learn as much as I could. So I wrote short stories for the 2 years of workshop. And at the last quarter of the second year, I felt like I kind of was like, maybe I'm brave enough to try to write a novel now. And figuring that I'd never be more supported than I was there. So I picked up the novel. I divided it in half and started with my dad's side. And that was my first writer math, where I was like, let's say a novel is 250 pages long. If I write 10 pages a day for 5 weeks, I will have that number of pages and I can say that I've written a draft of a novel. And I just need to know that that road is there and that it's possible to reach the end of it. And I did that. I wrote 10 pages a day in the Newport Beach Library. And I just kept going. And I didn't know what the story was going to look like. I didn't have an outline. I had some details from my family, but mostly I was
Was it
just
the one on MacArthur?
discovering stuff.
The library on MacArthur?
Yes.
That has
Yep,
the view of the ocean? That
yep,
was
yep.
my middle school, high school library. I was there
Really?
all the time. Yeah.
It's such a good library.
It's
Oh,
a
I love
beautiful
that.
library. Yeah.
I know. It was such a lucky place to get to write. It was great. And then I'd go to what is that fancy grocery store next door? I don't remember,
Nelson's,
but I would
Bristol
go
Farms.
yeah, I would go, I think it's Bristol Farms. I would go I
Yeah.
could only afford to get a string cheese and an apple, but I'd go over there and get snack. Yeah, so then I had that novel thing, but it was so crazy. It was like characters disappeared halfway through or appeared halfway through as if they'd always been there. Tenses were it was really, really wild. So I revised that during my third year. I kept, I a couple of teachers read it. I revised and revised. And at the end of that, when I finished the MFA, one of my stories got published in One Story, and I got a lot of notes from agents. And so they were like, "Do you have a novel?" That's the question that story writers get asked. And I had to say, "Yes, I do. I have a novel." But it really wasn't ready. So I sent it out before it was ready and got all the rejections. Slowly, they just over the months, they kept filtering in. And finally, I got a rejection from at some point checked in with teachers, and one of my teachers was like, "Let me send it to somebody at Grey Wolf, which is an amazing small press." And that editor was the last person who was reading, and she wrote me after a few months to say, "I'm not going to buy this book, but I think you have something here, and I think you need to consider the approach you're taking. I think you need to think about the point of view. I think you need to think about some of these big questions." And she was just so right. So I dove back in a really different way and revised it a bunch more. And then I got one more note from that one story from an editor who was at Riverhead, who was like, I just want to be on the list for whatever. When you have an agent and they're submitting, I want to be on that list. And I was like, oh, I'm coming to New York to visit my grandma. Could I like take you out for a glass of wine and talk about that? And she said yes. So we kind of got to be friends. And then I asked her if she had an agent. I sent her my whole story collection, not the novel, because I understood that it wasn't ready. And I asked her if she could think of an agent that felt like the right person just for the stories. And she was like, yes, definitely. I'm sending it to PJ Mark right now. So that he read it over the course of a week and was like, I just trust you from these stories. I trust you. And I love that you're revising that book until you're really ready. And I'm willing to like sign you on and send me the manuscript when you're done. So it was like so many little like following those doorways again. Those are those like one little doorway leads to the next little doorway. And even though along the way a lot of doors are getting closed, as long as there's like one way to keep moving forward, it keeps moving forward. So after I spent like I didn't have a job for a few months and I spent 12 hours a day revising that novel. I was like so in it. It felt like the sentences were my own blood. And when I sent it to him, he loved it and he sold it in like 3 days to that editor who had written me originally. So it was like such a sweet and
So
wonderful story.
cool.
I
Amazing.
know. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, and she ended up leaving Riverhead after a little while. She's an agent now. We're still really good friends. But I've been with the same editor who I got passed to since for all 5 of my books of fiction. And yeah, it feels like it. Yes, I have a lot of ground under me now. I have a lot of like I've like built up a career and I have some trust from the publishing world, but I'm not a super bestseller. And every book is starting over. Every book is like, I don't know if this will work. I don't know if it will sell. I don't know what will happen. And that is hard, but it's also okay because it means that I'm going to keep really trying. I'm never going to become complacent because you just don't get to in this industry unless you become like the kind of bestseller where they just know they're going to make money because your name is on the cover. Otherwise, everybody's kind of in the same boat and that's okay.
Well, you've written beautiful books. They are just gorgeous.
Thank you.
Last question before we say goodbye.
Yeah.
We always like to ask, what are the 3 books that kind of always stay with you? And and if it's hard to think of those, it could just be what's on your nightstand right now. But we like to know kind of what are your top 3?
That is a good and hard question. Christine Scott was one of my teachers. She was a visiting writer, and her work is like the sentences are dense and incredible. And I feel like it's like the strongest version of the drug, which I love her work. I think my favorite, well, I love her short stories, but there's a novel called All Souls. Pretty sure it's called All Souls, that takes place at a prep school in New York and is just a really spectacular novel. So those ones are definitely in the like if I need to like return to the real thing, I go there. I loved the We the Animals by Justin Torres is another one that I come back to and it feels like it keeps being a new book every time I revisit it. I don't know. I mean, they're like yeah, it's hard. After that, I feel like it depends on what I'm working on right at the time. I'm reading a book called The Hounding by I think Zenobi Phillips is her name, and it's about these 3 sisters who I believe are going to turn into dogs but it takes place in like long ago England, out in the wilderness, and it's really cool and really good, and it feels like it's both like accurate historical fiction and crazy like fantastical, but like fantastical in a way that really teaches you something about the real world. I love that. That's always I always want to read that.
That sounds
Reminds
very
me
up
of
my alley.
It sounds very Karen Russell, St. Lucy's School
Yeah,
for Girls
exactly.
Raised by
Yeah.
Wolves. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we could talk forever. It was so great having you on the podcast, Mona. Where can people find your work? Where can they buy Unstuck? Let the people know how to follow you.
That should be available all over in all the online and in-person retailers. If they don't have it at your local indie, you can order it. And you can find me on Instagram at Ramona Ausubel, all one word. And my website is my name too. So you can find me there. And I've got an email address on there that if you want to say, hey, I'll totally answer you back.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. Everyone, please go out and buy Unstuck 101 Doorways Leading from the Blank Page to the Last Page. And Mona, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
It was such a joy. Thank you both. Thank you for reading so well and having such good questions. I can't wait to see what you write.
I know I said I wasn't going to accomplish anything this following week, but now I feel like I want to. So thanks, Ramona.
I really love, everyone should go and pick up a copy of this book because I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. But in the small snippets that I did read, I was very inspired. Did you notice that she has a blurb from Karen Russell? I almost died.
Oh my God.
And I think like Pam Houston also wrote something like, I felt inspired to use these as writing prompts. And there's just so much in there. It's such a generous book. It is so filled with kindness and love and attention for writers. And I just feel like it feels like a hug. Everyone should
Just
go
a
pick it
really
up.
easy to use. It's like
Yeah.
you can literally just like flip it open and be like, okay, this is my assignment for the day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the prompts are so well guided. That's what
Mhm.
I liked about it. Is it's like oftentimes when I approach those prompt books, it's just like describe the middle school cafeteria where you ate. And it's like that doesn't like really help me accomplish anything with the writing I need to be doing. Whereas this book is very helpful in like what I'm actually working on.
Yeah, I like the one that's like write it from a different POV, write your main character's obituary. There's a lot of really cool things in there. And then outside of it's not really a writing prompt book. It's more of like a thinking prompt book. I feel like it's asking you to be more permissive and generous with yourself and how you're approaching problems that you're facing in your writing. But it's even outside of writing, things like do something for someone else or, be kind to yourself. It's just very indicative of the type of person that Mona is, that she would write this book to just have writers, feel more at peace and in love with their work and themselves. So everyone go buy it. Not just, everyone go buy it.
That's your goal for the week, everybody. Now we gotta think about what ours are.
Book. Yeah.
Okay, Krisserin, do you have goals for the week ahead?
Well, I do feel like I have neglected a bit the book that I'm working on, the middle school love story. So I do want to try. I mean, I did write twice last week. I do want to try and write 3 times again this week. I do want to dedicate and focus the energy on the book. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts on my story.
Yeah, that's part of my goals for the week ahead is I'm going to set aside some time to reread your story.
I can't wait and get my mom's feedback on it as well. I really like the ending. Like I said, I kind of just, instead of feeling the pressure to make it about something, I was just like, let me just make it fun. Like, how would I want this story to end? And that's what I wrote. And I was really kind of giddy by how it turned out. But I think that if I do get any feedback, I'll go back to that short story. But that's my goal, is I want to write 3 times this week and get some more sleep, which might be hard. All right, Kelton. You and I are kind of in the same boat. We've got our family in town. We got all this stuff going on. What are your plans?
My plan is to read your short story. I would also like to finish my library books. And I would like to write another 3,000 words, I think, this week. I'll lower my expectations a little bit, but I think that with the momentum I feel, 3,000 is not impossible. And I already wrote the newsletter for this week. So that means on Saturday, my writing time can be for the book.
Wait a minute. What was it, like a week ago or 2 weeks ago? You said you weren't going to give yourself word count goals. So what changed?
I just don't really know how else to make a goal for this week. I mean, maybe it's like 2 more scenes or something. But I also like the idea of, how people say that you shouldn't stop at the end of like a chapter when you're writing, that it's like you should stop midway so that when you come back, you have the momentum, you know what you're doing, and it's easier to get started. When I wrote 2 scenes, I was kind of like, well, I have time for a third scene. And I felt myself dragging my feet a little. So I'm trying it again. Now that there's like momentum behind it. And maybe it won't work, maybe it will. It's still my fantasy method of working that I work toward a word count, the part that clicks the most in my brain and makes me feel like I accomplished the most. Like when you were saying earlier that you only wrote once this week, but you wrote 4,400 words. I would not in any way be disappointed that that was only one time. I'd be like, I wrote 4,400 words. That's a lot. That's like a huge chunk of a book. That's a whole 16th of a book. And so I like that number more. Cuz for me sitting down to write 3 times, I know I can blunder my way through sitting down 3 times and not really accomplish anything. Whereas 3,000 words for me, there's an action goal there.
I can see where you're coming from. I am the opposite. That advice doesn't help me, that kind of like right into the middle of the scene. My brain needs completion. It needs to come to the end. Even if I'm not happy with how fleshed out the scene is, I want to get to the end of the scene because I like that feeling of completion. For me, scenes feel very circular, like every kind of scene starts a new circle for me. It's kind of this rhythmic feeling that I get when I'm writing. And so I want to come to the end. I don't know if you've seen what's it called? The Artemis 2 and how it's traveling around the world and it gets slingshot around the moon. That's kind
Mhm.
of how my scenes feel, is like I'm kind of circling and then I finish scene and it slingshots me into the next scene. And
I
so
see.
I like completing things, which is why when I sat down, I don't even know how long I wrote for. It was on the weekend. Whenever you texted me, was that Saturday?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I sat down and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote until I finished. And then I could get up and go away, but I didn't do it with like a word count goal in mind. I just felt compelled to finish more than
I feel like
anything.
I'm trying to get off at the top of the Ferris wheel so that when I get back on, it just gravity helps me start writing again.
Yeah. I can understand that too.
I don't know if it really works for me. Like all of this novel writing is novel. But I don't know what helps me finish a book. So everything in this era is me just trying stuff to see what it works. And of course, I'm inclined to do the things that sound attractive to me.
Right.
That was why I talked about the writer math in this episode. I just like loved that because it that like works with my brain. Like I can't even tell you how much of my personal journal is just math. It's like really weird when you flip through it and there's so many sections that are just numbers.
You're such a Capricorn.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Like it's so hilarious what a deep-seated Capricorn I am.
There is actually a chapter in Ramona's book about needing to be kinder than necessary, especially to yourself. And one thing for her was, and we've talked about this, is the time spent in the seat is so important, because one thing is true, you're not going to write a book if you don't make the time to sit down and do it, which is why for me, saying 3 days a week is forcing myself to spend the time. Because once I'm there, even
Mhm.
if I'm not super productive, at least I'm like looking at it and tinkering with it, and it is spending the time. And I do feel like with your experience with your book, that time is not wasted. It kind of adds up and it builds momentum and helps with these outbursts of productivity. But here's what I think. This is my opinion on how you write a book. I feel like writing a novel is like raising a baby from like 0 to 6 months. Meaning, sometimes there's like one thing that is a miracle. It's like that one pillow or the one pacifier or the one song, and it works like a charm and it saves your life for like 2 weeks and then doesn't work anymore. And you got to find something else. I feel like it's a constant troubleshooting, problem solving, something works now, but then it doesn't work anymore. And you've got to pivot and you got to figure out how to get back to that productivity or figure out how to make it work again. I think that there's no one thing. I think it's constantly changing, and it's just part of being a writer with a million other responsibilities is you just have
Yeah.
to keep paddling and navigating what comes at you. And sometimes you'll find a thing that's a miracle, and then sometimes it just won't work anymore.
For me, I feel like having a word count or having set scenes you have to write is sort of like having a training plan. Like I can go run 3 times a week, but if I do the same run every single time, I'm never going to get ready for the like trail marathon, you know?
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
I need to set goals within those times in order for me to progress. And so
Hmm.
that's like I feel you on it has to be time and seat first. You have
Hmm.
to like get on your running shoes and get outside. But then I need a restraint beyond that to work toward, or else
Hmm.
I'll just start meandering, you know? And so I need that training plan because it motivates me, and I don't know what the right motivations are and what the right training plan is. That's sort of the problem. I'm like, well, we've established now, like I have a time in my calendar when I show up. I know that I need to do this. I know what the end goal is, but I'm still looking at like what helps me get stronger.
Yeah, it's almost like you need a coach.
Mhm. Mhm. That's what you are.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, the thing that motivates me is meeting you once a week to tell you whether I got my shit done or not. But it's
Mhm.
also getting texts from you saying, I got my shit done. Did you get your shit done?
Mhm.
So there
Yeah,
is
and
a,
everybody we talk to, I'm like, oh, a
yeah,
lot of people are getting shit done.
yeah. A lot of people are getting so
A
much
lot of
shit
people are
done.
getting so much shit done. And I'm like, girl, you can get shit done too. I
I
saw
know.
a reel the other day of a girl who found a lost black kitten on a trail. And I just was like seething with envy. And I just had to tell myself, I was like, seeing other people achieve your dreams means that your dreams are achievable.
Oh,
Seeing
that's
other
nice.
people achieve your dreams means your dreams are achievable. So I was just like, calm down. It will happen for you.
I love the comments of those things on TikTok where it's like, I'm happy for you, I guess. Congrats.
Wow, nice. Thanks.
Good
Cool.
for
Glad to see
you.
this. Good for
Yeah.
you. What
Mm.
trail was it?
Well, again, listeners, dear listeners, if you do not have an accountability buddy, we are happy to be that for you. Please email us at officialpenpalspod@gmail.com and let us know how your writing's going and what your goals are and what you're struggling with and how you're stuck. And we would love to help you out. And if you do, maybe we'll even send you a copy of Unstuck because guess what? I got one. I got one. It's going to arrive on Tuesday. And I would happily send it out to someone who needs it because now I've got 2 copies. But we love to hear from you. It makes our day. If you have not yet subscribed to the pod, please do so. It really helps with our numbers. Leave us a review. That was one thing that was in Unstuck. Leave a generous review of 5 books that you've read. Why not leave a generous review of your favorite writing podcast? We would love it. Would make our entire week to read some nice words from our listeners. You know where to follow us. I'm at Krisserin on TikTok, Kelton's at KeltonKin on Instagram, and Kelton Writes on TikTok, shangralogs.substack.com. And I guess you could subscribe to my Substack, even though I really never post anything there at krisserin.substack.com. We also have a Substack for pen pals. I'm actually going to be posting, I'm going to post, that's one of my goals. Write it down. I'm going to post our book list on Saturday. So
Amazing.
if you're listening to this, it's on our Substack. We have a whole little fun write-up about the books that have influenced us as writers. And that's all I got, Kelton. That's all I got.
Happy writing, everybody.
Happy writing.